All right, this one's Tim Cain morale improvement. And if you're on YouTube and you're seeing this, it's because I haven't reacted to it, but I don't know if I reacted to this yet. So if you don't see it, it's because I've already reacted to it, and it's probably in one of my older videos.
Hi everyone, it's me, Tim.
Hi, Tim.
Today I'm going to talk about morale improvement. Specifically, I want to answer a question from Rhinosaur77 who asked, I'd love to see a video on how you would keep team morale up during stressful times at work. The chocolate tasting meetings you had were great, and the bacon fairy was a highlight during work, even if the fun police didn't like it. It really helped us keep a bit more sane. So I've never done a video on morale, and I have a couple caveats about that. But let me just mention that Rhinosaur77 and I work together at Carbine.
Okay.
So he's somebody who knows me. And he's also a master channel member. So I'm filming this on a Thursday morning. Since Friday's already unlocked, this will be Monday's video. Anyway,
Let me give my answer, because I always like to try to like jump into it and say what I think, and then see if Tim completely obliterates my view in it. Team morale is such a multifaceted thing, right? We've talked about the layoffs today in game dev, and how losing half your team and half your friends can severely damage morale. Dragon Spirit Games, thank you for the follow.
Bullshit.
Derivative. That's such a long alert, but I love it.
I absolutely.
So we've talked about a bit about like the layoffs and how that messes up. Hey, hope you're having an amazing Thursday. Thank you, Dragon Spirit Games. Hope you're having an amazing Thursday too. We are. I will have to go to the bathroom soon here, but I will try to get through this video first in 2 hours. What was I saying? Yeah, morale. It's like pizza parties is like the meme, right? It's like corporate's just gonna buy you pizza parties, and I don't know, like a day off can help, right? But a day off doesn't really solve the underlying problems that might be affecting morale, for instance, right? So I've worked at a company where I think we had pretty low morale as a team. We had good teamwork, and our team morale, like we were very, very close knit and friendly, and we worked well together. But the morale of the team was low, and there's so many different instances. You could be working on a game that you don't like. You could be forced to be doing something that you don't like. You could just be doing something on the project that doesn't interest you, but you have to do it, and no one else knows how to do it. And that can affect your morale for a couple weeks. You could have gotten in a bad argument with maybe your lead or one of the people in management. I mean, there's so many things. You could have been denied a raise, right? So you could be crunching. Crunching is a big source of morale, like burnout. There's so many sources of this, and I think that the way you can handle it is, God, there's so many things. I mean, you could have different cultures too. You could have I worked at a place where we had two separate cultures in the work. We had people who were more tech oriented. They didn't really play games a lot, and they were very useful to a certain aspect of the company. And then we had people over here who were really passionate about games and game dev, and their goals in the industry and as workers were not aligned. And the company was split between trying to appease both of them. But at the end of the day, they kind of just failed to deliver on either aspect. And so the company's goals didn't really align with either side completely, and it just felt like there was this cultural divide in the company. Again, it wasn't that people were unfriendly, but you had some people over here that were like, I don't really give a shit about the game. They didn't mean it that harsh of a way, but they were like, yeah, it's not about the game for me. This is just a job. And people over here, I was in this camp, that was like, no, I'm passionate about games and game dev. I want this to be the best game we can make, even if we need to make some sacrifices here. Like, this is where my emotion is. It's all over here. And it was tough. So that can cause morale too, because it can feel like your company isn't aligning with the way that you think.
It looks like he may commit suicide.
Yato, thank you for the follow.
Suicide is badass.
No.
Welcome to the stream, and thank you for the follow. I appreciate all the support today, guys. It's really wonderful to talk to you guys. I like putting my own views out there and having you guys challenge it. Because I'm not always right. I have a lot of takes, a lot of hot takes. And the only way that I can know that I'm wrong is by saying what I think, and letting it be disseminated and destroyed.
Let's dive into morale improvement.
Yeah.
This is something I've never thought of doing because looking back, I did do things to try to improve morale,
Same.
but it just felt like what I was supposed to be doing. Once I became a project manager on Fallout, and then later when I owned a company, and then I was a director or a lead, I just felt this is stuff I should do. They're not big things. In fact, some of them may seem like ridiculously small, and why are you bothering to mention it? But I bring it up because they were big for some people.
Yeah, I mean that matters too. I didn't think about that, but sometimes just talking to somebody, just letting somebody vent, like if they have a problem about the game, letting someone vent to you, especially as a designer, can improve morale. Letting somebody know that they are heard, that their complaints as a programmer aren't lost because they're not in charge of the game's design. That can do wonders for morale, and especially team morale.
I'll mention that when I get to them. But also, these were not enforced things. These were not like those team building exercises that some companies do, where it's like you will attend and you will make something out of popsicle sticks and you will interact with your fellow workers.
I actually think that a lot of those team exercises, they make really wonderful days. And I think that they can help in the short term, like for the next week or so or a couple days. They're really good for getting to know people, and getting to know people makes it easier to open up and to share. But that doesn't necessarily have a direct impact on morale, or at least a very big one. I think it is one of the factors, but a lot of times the factors that improve morale the most or hurt morale the most are the ones that are deeply rooted in somebody's personality, in their needs as a human, and their values as an individual.
None of these things were like that. These, I think, were genuinely fun things. Almost all of them were optional, and the ones that weren't optional because we were doing them for a work-related reason. But it turned out to be we kept doing them later for morale, and I'll talk about that. I'll go through all the companies I worked at because I did different things at different companies. Again, there's only 5 companies, but I thought long and hard about the first company I worked at, Pegasus, which changed its name to Cybron. I couldn't think of anything morale building there. They didn't do anything. You know, I was a teenager. I was 16.
Yeah, what do you
I didn't
know,
do
right?
anything. So I'm skipping them. So let's dive right into Interplay. One of the earliest things I remember about Interplay was Thursday Night Thing, which I told you we'd all get together on Thursday nights. We'd run out, grab food from different places. Sometimes we'd go eat together. Sometimes we'd just grab food from different places because people wanted different things. And we'd meet back in the main conference room, like 7 or 8, and we'd watch movies.
I like that. That's nice.
Play multiplayer Super Nintendo games or multiplayer Atari Lynx games, or we'd play D&D or GURPS or something like that, and it was fun. I don't remember who started it, but I know I was a big proponent of keeping it going to the point where I would often send out the emails, hey, we're doing this, we're going to go out to eat here, or hey, everybody grab food and be back by this time. So it was something that I kept going. And the only reason I stopped, ironically, was when Fallout got so intense that we were working so, or at least I was, such crazy hours on it. We kind of stopped doing it. Plus, we moved to...
And that's the problem. It's like, I've been in cases too where it's like the crunch. If you're crunching, you can often be like, okay, we're going to skip it this week. And then the next week rolls around. Oh, we're still working pretty hard. Let's skip it. Oh, we're tired from working hard. Let's skip it this next week too. And then it's gone. And it doesn't even have to be with team building exercises or, morale improvements, but even things that are very important to the development of the game. I worked on a game where we started skipping Scrum retrospectives. And if you know anything about retrospectives, they are ridiculously important to making sure that your methodology is evolving in a positive way. And if you don't have them, you're never analyzing what you're doing right or what you're doing wrong. And we started skipping them because there was a lot of crunch period. And then they never came back. And so it's like I was one of the people that was trying to complain about the way we were producing games. And we didn't have like a proper forum for it. So I was almost just kind of like complaining into the open air, and I think that didn't look great to management. But it's like I didn't have a proper place to do it. We got rid of the location that's perfect for it, that has every team lead on the meeting, and it's specifically designed for individuals to voice their concerns and to talk about who agrees and who disagrees and how we can address it. So, like, where am I supposed to do it? Am I just supposed to shut the fuck up? No, I'm not going to do that. I'm trying to make good games here, right? I told you, that's my passion. And one of the ways you make good games is by not making bad games. So, improving things that are bad. I don't think it's worth to give opinions in a professional setting, because either they will disagree and think less of you, or they will agree and steal your idea without giving you credit. I don't think those are... Maybe you can explain more of what you mean, because I don't agree with either of those cases. I think if somebody disagrees with you and thinks less of you based on like an opinion, especially in like game dev, then you've probably hired somebody who has a problem with ego or teamwork, and they're not going to be a good team player in the long run anyway. And if they steal your idea without giving you credit, again, it's similar. They're probably not somebody that you want to hire for a team setting. But maybe, identify what you mean a bit more so that I can correctly address that.
2 new offices that didn't have a convenient conference room for us to get together in, like the one we were. But I also mentioned, like, when we played GURPS. GURPS was something that I started inviting people in the evening for fun. It started for fun. We would play it. I just wanted to introduce people to GURPS. I liked running GURPS sessions. I loved, because GURPS characters could have so many different skills, I loved watching what the players would do and how they'd figure out how to solve the adventure. Later, when we actually were thinking of picking up the GURPS license,
good for imagination
for
too.
Fallout,
it's good for creatives.
I ran a few more sessions to actually teach GURPS to people. And that was really important, and I discovered that later for Temple of Elemental Evil, that if you're going to have a group of people work on a game, they should know the rules. So if you license a product, if it's Star Wars, they should watch the movies. If it's a tabletop game, they should play it. But it also helped the team gel. I mean, they're sitting there playing a game, they're talking with each other. It was very good for team morale and team cohesion.
Yes. As a part, like I was going to say, it's good for team building, it's good for morale, but it's also great for just getting the imagination active and kind of de-stressing after work. So all of these things can not only help improve morale, but they help improve the activity of the team, especially in the following week, right? Because you're training your muscles, you're training your brain. Almost everyone I've ever given opinions to has fallen into one of those 2 categories. If I give an opinion they don't like, they show a negative expression, almost shaming me for even saying it. And if they like my opinion, I've literally seen people share my idea in front of me as their own idea. I think if you express your opinions openly, like we do, I do this on stream, right? I accept the responsibility that when I speak for thousands of hours, and we talk about controversial topics on here a lot, war, religion, abortion, politics, anything is pretty much open game for me to talk about, that there's probably going to be a case where I have a bad take. It's going to happen. And, that's fine. I'd rather know that I have a bad take than just pretend that I'm right all the time. And I think some things just don't have a right. They're just like philosophical. They're opinionated. There is no right and wrong to it. There is just difference. So I think if you're sharing something online, you kind of have to accept that, right? Depends on how you express that opinion. That's true. Yeah, the expression matters a lot. Obviously, doing it in a more, if you approach the conversation in an honest way, where it's like, I'm not here to be right or wrong. I'm here to state what I think. I expect you to state what you think, and then we can just talk about the nuances behind it. And coming out of it, we aren't trying to win or lose here. I think that's a really crucial part. Anybody who's coming into an argument trying to be the winner or loser, or going into one, honestly, just don't do it. You're not ever going to have anything reasonable to say. Nobody's going to come out of it more educated. And I also think that for game development, if people steal your idea, again, if people steal your ideas and take it as their own, you should not be working with those people. I don't know if you're talking about like game development, but that's not fair at all. if somebody in my team has a good idea, like, hey, it would be really cool if we had this idea, I will state when I'm pitching it to other leads that, hey, I was talking to this individual, they had this idea, or I might bring that individual into the call so that they can explain their idea better, because I don't want to paraphrase it and maybe they have a different view for it that wasn't properly expressed in our initial talk. So giving credit to other teammates is a very crucial aspect of game design that a lot of game designers skip over because they think, oh, I'm the game designer, I get to own all the ideas. No. You are the curator. You are the librarian of ideas. But I'll tell you what, most librarians didn't write any of the books in the library, okay? And I think that's a pretty apt analogy here. You are a librarian of ideas. You show people where to go, which ones to go to. Here's what this one means. But you didn't necessarily write any of the ideas. So, give your team credit because it improves their morale a lot. It makes them think, I have an actual impact on this game beyond writing code that no players will ever see. Just don't have opinions in the workplace. Head down, 9 to 5, live life at home. I don't agree. But, again, I'm in my passionate place. So for me, being passionate and opinionated is just part of my job.
And when I play the GURPS campaigns and they saw how many different ways there were to solve the same...
It's inspiring.
Puzzle or adventure, and then they saw how different groups did it, that really helped with getting the team on board on the multiple quest solutions. Another thing I almost forgot I had done was I used to bring in cinnamon bread because I like to bake cinnamon bread, but there was no way I was going to eat an entire loaf of it. So I'd make a fresh loaf, not every morning, but probably three mornings a week.
Pretty cool.
And I'd bring it in. And I got in early. I got in like 7 or 8 a.m. So it would pop out of my bread maker and I'd go to work and it would be hot and steaming and fresh. And I'd slice it up and I'd eat a slice or two and then I'd leave the rest out for people to have. And there were people who would come in late and they were like, hey, you're not saving me any. And I'm like, first come, first serve.
Yeah.
There were people who started coming in earlier. And then if they came in early enough that I was arriving with it, we'd sit and eat cinnamon bread and talk about, hey, did you see this new feature that went in? Or did you see this really cool animation someone did or a cool cinematic? And it was fun. It was morale building and I had no idea it was happening.
I did something similar too. I would bring in like cookies, right? If you're in Poland, those like big boxes of, they're cheap, right? They're not the best quality, but they're edible. They're nice. And if somebody brings them into work, it's pretty cool, right? You can take a break, stand outside or just stand, get a bit of a stretch and eat some of those nice cookies. And I would bring those in because I didn't have a lot of money, but I could afford those. I brought those in and I think that I did it not as like an underhanded thing, like, oh, I'm conniving, I'm little fingering this situation here, right? It was just like, oh, this seems like fun. I think it'd be fun if people could have this, and I like talking with them. And this is kind of like a conversation starter, right? Yeah, people can just enjoy these cookies. What I realized later is how impactful little things like that could be because it kind of put a smile on their face. They could come in, they could have a little snack, a little bit of chocolate, right? And also, I think it made them a bit more friendly towards me, especially when I started at the company here in Poland. I'm not Polish, I speak English, and I think it could be difficult for people to talk to me like that. Iris19, thank you for the follow. Good luck on the fish. Like wild animals, feed them. No, but I know that people were like very curious about me when I moved here, but they also felt afraid that I would judge them for their bad English, which they didn't have bad English. They were varying degrees, but everybody I could communicate with. And I think they just didn't know how to identify with me because I grew up on a different continent than them. But bringing stuff like that, I think showed them that, I'm here like them. I am just trying to be part of a team. And they should feel safe coming to me as a game designer because I'm not going to bite their head off, right? And I think that comes with experience. They need to share the idea, take the leap. And one of the advices that I give to one of the pieces of advice I give to juniors is to be the first person critical about your own game. If there's a problem with your design, you need to spot it as soon as possible and openly voice it. Say, I messed up with the system. I'm going to try to change the design. Maybe I'll talk to the producer about getting that fixed. And the reason is because when you are talking openly about your own mistakes, It makes people more likely to talk about about design issues that they have with you. And that's really important. If people don't feel safe coming to you talking about design problems, you're basically designing a game alone. And a lot of games don't design well alone. You need to talk to somebody, you need to share ideas. Like these people, it's not their fault. Like their brain tricks them into thinking that they're responsible for the idea. Like they heard the idea, so finders keepers. Some people, but honestly, that just feels like they're bad teammates. I don't know the psychology behind it, to be honest. It would be insane to judge someone for not speaking in their native language when you live in their country. It would be, but people have that. People have that fear, especially because I do professional English editing and writing, or like whenever we have something in the game that we need to have professionally written, or edited for like throwing up on marketing, I am the one doing that and proofreading it. So maybe they think, oh, he's really good, which means he might be really in his head about it, but I don't. As long as we can communicate, that's my only goal. And if they have a problem, if they have a problem with the way they're speaking and they want to fix it, I will help them. If they don't ever ask, I won't assume, just out of like courtesy. Maybe that's a bad thing to do, but I don't want to like be like, oh, you should have said the sentence this way. Like, no, just keep the conversation going, right? My district manager doesn't understand that it lowers work morale to not let them have any food that's going to be thrown away. Yeah, that's really that's really dumb. They need to. Also, hey Datu, how you doing? I solve it like this. Firstly, I always write things and send them to have logs. Then when somebody tries to present my ideas, there's I point it out. Man, if I'm working with people that try to present my ideas, I do not want to work with those people. Simple as that. And you can have mistakes, right? Or you can just have a slip of the tongue. But I think that there's a difference between just not saying it or having an obvious slip of the tongue and like defending the fact that this was my idea, look at how great it is, when it's like, no, this was Kotzber's idea. Narcissistic frenemy disorder. I think maybe there's some just slip the tongue and instant. I think there are some designers too that feel threatened that they're not good designers because they don't have good ideas. And I'm not saying that a designer with bad ideas is still a good designer, but that it isn't the job of a designer to have ideas necessarily. It is their job to manage, to curate, and communicate those ideas through various ways: verbal, written, diagram, video, prototype, whatever. That is your goal. I don't want to get petty and try to take credit for every little thing, but if people aren't recognizing my value, I'd rather just not help them at all. Well, and that's exactly it. That's why it fucks up your morale. It's now you don't care because you aren't being recognized. And recognition is a big part of artistic works and just humanity in general. That's why it's like, while we're talking about morale improvement, just recognize people. I mean, how many people work at Larian Studios, right? But sadly, the only people that really everybody knows is Sven. And it's not his fault, right? It's really hard to get everybody in front of a camera, and not everybody wants to be in front of a camera. But recognition is important for a lot of people, not just the people in charge making decisions. And one way that you can improve recognition, at least in the studio itself, is by talking with people and getting ideas from the whole team and attributing those ideas to them. Even writing it in design documents. Like, I was talking with this individual, here's where the idea came from, right? So I know who to talk to if I need to remind myself, oh, who had this incredible idea, right? Or at least when you're talking about it in front of like the players, you're like, oh, I was talking to a programmer. You've seen him on camera, Katzber, and we had this idea to do this thing, and so I designed the system, and here we go. For a little thing, now, but for bigger thing, yes. If some works, it is not that important. But if I was a designer and somebody would steal my design solution, I would be mega pissed. As this design solution is what I'm being evaluated on. That's true. That's a really good point. Yeah, it's like your work here is sometimes based on your ability to. Okay, here's one of the things that I would do too with design specifically is I would write in the author of a design doc. And I felt like that was really crucial to put down, so that not only for when people wanted to talk to the person in charge of writing that, they wouldn't just go to the lead and then the lead would be like, yeah, talk to this guy, or pretend that they know what they're talking about, but that they could go directly to that person, but also so that the designer had a history of the things that they actively created. For me, it is really crucial that people's ideas don't get misattributed or passed off as my own. It is not my, again, it's not my job as a designer to necessarily have ideas, even though I will be doing that a lot in my work.
So later at Troika made me realize I have to do that stuff deliberately. And when I ran Temple, and I talk about this when I talk about the fun of doing Temple of Elemental Evils development, we would play D&D because I had learned, hey, when we did a game based on GURPS, people should learn to play it. So we started playing D&D. I think it was one day a week. I think it was Wednesday afternoons for like an hour and a half, 2 hours. The team would sit down and play. They would make their characters beforehand. That way they could email me questions. They could look at the books. They could figure out,
Yeah, that's smart.
what D&D 3.0 and then later 3.5, although I think we had stopped playing by the time we switched to 3.5. They learned how the game worked, and it helped. And you may go, well, did it really help that much? And I was like, yes, it helped not only the designers, but when you had an artist who was trying to think of what animations they had to make, they knew that like a fall down stand-up animation was required. They saw people throw grease, which made people fall down, make enemies fall down and have to stand back up.
Well, yeah, and with the programmers too. So when you're designing a document, like for Grease, for instance, now not only do you have the document to work off of, but you've played the game, so you know how it should affect the player, right? So when programming the grease into the game, you know how it's going to affect the player. And even if the design document's a bit lackluster, or maybe you didn't understand it as well, you have this other bit of knowledge to fall back on and experience. Or you can simply ask, hey, should this work the same way that it works in the tabletop? And the designer can say yes, and therefore the programmer will know, and that doesn't need extra explanation of how that grease is going to work. So yeah, I mean, it's like every single thing about them playing D&D after work is incredibly important for the game, not only from a development standpoint, but from a like teamwork and team building and morale standpoint.
There was a trip attack in D&D, which made people fall down and they'd have to get up. There were sleep attacks that would make people fall asleep. They'd fall down and go to sleep. So we needed animations for that, and you didn't have to explain to the animators what it would be used for. We played D&D. They saw it. One thing I also started doing...
I know, for instance, when we worked on the train simulator, for instance, it's really hard to get a group of individuals who are all interested in working on a train simulator. It's very difficult. Not many people want to work on simulators. That's just a simple fact. And not many people were interested in trains. Think of that what you will. I promise that exists in every development studio to some extent. Some more than others. Some studios, I think, have a bit of an easier time. Larian Studios, I imagine, has a relatively easy time finding people who are interested in Baldur's Gate or in turn-based strategy games that want to work on their next game. Some developers, like us with the train simulator, it was harder. So you do end up with this issue of not everybody understands what the product is supposed to be. And even if you say, oh, it's supposed to be a light train simulator, right? Like Euro Truck Sim, but on rails, which was one of our kind of ways to pitch the game. Still, some people just didn't play Euro Truck. They weren't interested in simulators at all. And it was very difficult to convey how a system was supposed to work when the entire basis was it's supposed to work like Train Simulator. Well, they'd never played Euro Truck. I mean, they never played Euro Truck Simulator, and it's now okay. Now I have to write more documentation to explain how it works in Euro Truck, or I have to like show some screenshots or a video. We need to have a call about it. It adds time. It just adds complication, and for sure, when it comes to working on games, when it comes for like Microraptor, I will try to hire people that want to actually actively work on Colton Chronicles and have played some of the inspiration, or that will be one of the initial onboarding tasks. Like, hey, watch this video, play this game, understand what it is we're making. And tomorrow you're going to see, because tomorrow we're playing Pain for the PS3, if you know that game. We're going to be playing it on stream tomorrow as a way to help kickstart the development of a spiritual successor to this game, so that we understand it, and that I can record this and give it to the rest of the team so that they can understand what is being done here too. Give me 1 second, guys. I will read your messages. I just have to go to the bathroom real quick, so give me 1 second. Don't click off the stream, or I will find you. After recording will be him yapping yet.
Curse you, Bale!
Oh, sorry. I was muted. What I was saying was, I was reading out Cosper's thing. I can't work on shitty ideas because I just go instantly into burnout mode and become super unproductive. It usually ends changing job. 100% the same. And I know that we've talked about that before, right? Where he and I have worked together on a game before, and we're just really passionate about making good games and making good experiences and growing as developers. That, yeah, if I don't feel like I'm growing or being challenged, I kind of just get burnt out or depressed, or I need to change my life around some way so that I can continue to grow. And in a lot of cases, there have been places that I've worked where I feel like I've been hired to do a specific job, and they shoehorn me in there, and that's all I'm expected to do. And I'm not really allowed to work outside of that realm, and so therefore, I don't really grow as fast as I want. I saw too many devs who made a game together, a programmer and an artist, and the programmer didn't even put the artist in the credits or even mention that he even existed when publicly talking about the game. Acting like he did the whole thing himself. That's fucked up. That is fucked up. Well, first, programmer can get sued, both all IP from artist. Actually, credits are not mandatory. One thing I can say, for people who have been, who might wonder, because there have been some issues with QA or localization teams not being put into credits. Every single person who touches Colden Chronicles and any of our future games will be put into the credits accurately for the work that they did. And if they have worked on two aspects of the game, they will be credited in both sections of the game. So, for instance, we have a a producer who also does some of the narrative design. They would be credited in both locations. I think that's really important. That's just crucial to me. Sorry, I was muted. Apologies for that. Have you seen stupid things that happened with the development of Kerbal Space Program 2? Yes, I have. It's a real shame. Did you go to the washroom yet? Yes. Do I apply for your game? We'll see about that once we get past prototyping. What if I literally touch the game with my finger? We can put you in the credits as finger touched. Finger toucher. Fingerer of games. I like it.
I had lunch with people more often when I was at Troika. I didn't do that much before or since because, I was an introvert and I needed I'm an introvert extrovert. I have a whole video about whether I'm an introvert extrovert, and I needed that downtime to.
I'm an introvert. I'm a big introvert with the capability to socialize relatively well. But I can also lock myself in my apartment for a week and just do nothing but game. No problem. And I love it. It's very relaxing and it's very energizing. But yeah, it is what it is. Lead game fingerer role. The development of Kerbal Space Program 2 was a shit show? Yes, it was. It was an absolute shit show, and it's a real shame because I had really high hopes for Kerbal 2.
To recharge my introvert battery. But at Troika, it was such a small company. There weren't a lot of people to do things with. So I started regularly just going to lunch. Sometimes I'd take the group to lunch. There was a local mom and pop pizza
Lunch
place
is
in
huge.
Irvine that we all loved the pizza.
I loved going to lunch
They
with
loved
friends.
us because it was a
colleagues.
small place. But since it was usually nice weather, we'd sit out in the patio. We weren't loud. But, I'd show up with 14 people. I'd order a ton of pizzas and drinks. We'd pick up after ourselves, and we'd sit out in the patio. So we weren't even filling up a lot of booths in the restaurant. The mom and pop loved us. Mom especially. She loved seeing us. I would sometimes call her and say, we're headed over. So we had a regular order.
That's really nice. That's really
fun.
fun.
We'd arrive and we could eat. It was really good. Similarly, there was a Chinese place less than a block from one of Troika's offices.
Lucky.
That I discovered and was really good because it was halal, which I guess is really common in the western part of China. I've never had better Chinese food. In fact, the Kung Pao chicken they had is the best I've ever had in my life. We used to just walk there, order stuff to go, walk back, eat at the conference room table, talk about stuff, talk about the game, talk about things we were stuck on, talk about a movie we saw. It was very...
I did the same thing, and that was one of the reasons why I hated working from home with COVID, is because it robbed me of those moments. And we used to have in one of the old companies I worked at, we had what was called the food group. Sorry, I had to sneeze. It was a collection of individuals that would always go out to lunch together, and it was pretty cool because I had the lead programmer, lead level designer, and a lead artist with me in that food group when it was happening, and later on we also had another designer, QA, and a level designer joined too, a level artist / designer. And so these were really productive meetings. I mean, sometimes we would just talk about stuff that was going on in our homes, right? Like talking about one of the guy's kids or something, and she was growing up. Or we would talk about, like you said, games we would play, movies we would play. But a lot of the times we would solve problems with the game on that lunch, right? Getting away from the screens, getting away from other distractions, and just sitting down and having, refilling our energy, having that face-to-face interaction was huge for fixing things in the game. And I think oftentimes managers look at things like lunches, especially group lunches, as this is time off from work. And a lot of the time, I don't think it is. I think a lot of the time, lunches with colleagues during work hours is just as productive as any other time during work. You're just not doing it in front of the screen, right? So I missed those when COVID hit, and that was a big hit for me for like productivity standpoint, because I would solve a lot of my design issues. I would be able to talk to them about a system that I was designing, and For instance, the lead programmer would tell me what was capable with the engine, and the lead level designer would tell me he had a really good design brain, right? And so he would tell me what he thought about my design. The lead artist would tell me what he couldn't do, or give me some advice on things that we could do differently, especially visually. So there was like, it was amazing. It was amazing. I could solve so many problems there. When COVID hit, I had to eat lunch, and it's like I still want to talk to somebody about my design, but all these guys are busy now. Really sucked. And those cover levels moved onto a model kit game. I think you're right. Different cultures, different companies. Our lunches were always non-work. I think that's fine too. Honestly, I think that's fine too. If you're talking about work during your off time, you're way too deep in. But we didn't think about it as work. It's because we were passionate about what we did. Everybody on that food group, I know for sure, was part of the individuals that are really passionate about their work. And so being able to share it with others and ask people what they felt was incredible. Sounds like your company needs to have more meetings. No, I think we actually had too many meetings. It's just our meetings weren't productive. You can have meetings, but meetings, that doesn't mean that the meetings are productive, right? And the lunch meetings that we had were a way for us not only to refill our energy and to socialize, but also to solve crucial problems. Because they would be more organic. When you start a meeting, it isn't a meeting for you to talk about something for like whatever for an hour. It's to talk about a specific topic with goals. That's what a meeting should be. But a casual conversation can shift from the first 20 minutes talking about one of the guys' kids to talking about a favorite movie and then ending with a design problem that we have in the company. So it's the organic nature of it cannot be understated. And your meeting needs to have food in it to be productive, maybe, as they're socializing. Yeah, it's like I think that the lunches are extremely productive, as Tim seems to agree with. They're very, sometimes they don't have anything to do with game dev. Sometimes they're just random shit. I know, for instance, I met with some of my previous colleagues a month ago, and we were just talking about random shit that didn't have to do with game dev at all. And sometimes it's just about game dev. It's about one specific problem, or maybe it's about a company problem. And we're trying to see, hey, I have this feeling that we're not doing this and we should be doing this. And you can just casually talk about it. So there's so many different ways that lunches can go, and I think that they are a magical thing to share with somebody else, with your team members. They should not be understated, and I think that when you have remote work, you need to find a different way to solve that. And some of the ways you could solve it is by playing games, like some casual, not so mindful game after work hours or something, or even during work hours.
Very calming and a nice break in the middle of the day. By the way, we could also, because we would walk there, we'd often take the dog. I mentioned in the pets video that
it's good for physical health.
That dog was a great morale builder, because people would often like to take a break and just come in my office and sit on the floor and pet the dog. And that was fun, and it was relaxing. And sometimes they would be stuck on something and they'd tell me what they're stuck on. And I didn't solve it for them. I was just kind of a sounding board. You know, the dog, petting the dog lowered their blood pressure. And I would just be like, well, what have you tried? Have you done this? You know, and then they would come up with a solution on their own. But it was just a nice,
Tim understands
calm,
perfectly. Sounding board.
There was a reason to be there and bounce ideas off. And if there was a big lull in the conversation, that was fine. They were really there to pet the dog. So that worked really well. I also talked occasionally in the afternoon. We'd stop and watch a Chinese soap opera that no one understood. And that was fun too. We'd try to guess at what was going on and what
that's
the
pretty
characters
funny.
were doing and what the plot was.
It's kind of like a Mystery Science Theater 3000 kind of moment, right? Yeah, I mean, even little things like that, like he said, sometimes it's just good to talk to somebody else and vent why you're stuck on something. And even if they don't come up with a solution for you, sometimes just saying it can spark that creativity. And that is actually very similar to what is called rubber duck programming. Rubber duck debugging, rubber duck programming, rubber ducking. So this is a method of debugging where you are supposed to explain the way that your code works by talking to a rubber duck. You're supposed to go step by step and explain it to the fucking duck. And by doing that, you can sometimes figure out the problems or mistakes that you made in the programming just by going through it step by step and putting this duck in the place of a human. And as it says here, when humans are involved, it's known as confessional programming, right? These are both very, very useful ways to debug and to program just by sharing that. And I think designers and artists, they're no different. Sometimes they need to step by step go through and talk to somebody else about that problem. Really different culture in our company. Everyone mad we have to go back to offices, even though it's like 1 to 2 days a week. Okay, I will say I was part of the minority that wanted to go back to the office. I did remote work for 3 years. I fucking hated it. It was socially destructive. It was mentally horrible. I felt like I was growing at a much slower rate compared to when I was working with others. My mental health was worse because I wasn't socializing and I wasn't moving around as much. I was working from the same computer that I was playing games at, so I was feeling distracted all the time. Says the introvert. There's a difference though. The separation of work and personal life for me is one of the main reasons I do it. ADHD. I'm not ADHD. I'm ADD, if anything. For me, it's nice that I can leave this office at the end of the day. I can go home and I can play games. And then in the morning, I can come here. I can sometimes play games. But we do it as part of work, right? I stream. And having that main separation is really important for me mentally. And being able to walk to and from work is great too. And because we live in a small apartment and my fiance works from the apartment too, we don't distract each other. Because she was very distracting for me if she walks behind me and does something near the kitchen or the cat is being annoying. Like, I love my cat, but God forbid, I don't like being distracted when working. Unless I'm okay with being distracted. And that's been a learning experience with streaming, right? ADHD and ADD are considered the same disorder nowadays, really? With different symptoms more prominent, just spreading awareness? Oh, I didn't know that. I don't like to say that I have either, though. I don't like to claim that I have something. Because I feel like it would make it too easy. It's just my personal thing. I don't like doing it because I think it would give me an excuse to fall back and say, well, I'm this way because of this. Like, I think I can work past most of my problems or find ways to deal with them. And for me, one of the ways that I worked past my severe crippling fear of being in front of a camera or talking to people on a microphone was to start streaming about 10 years ago. And that helped me greatly with meeting people at conferences. And even my first game dev conference, I did not speak to anyone. I was terrible at icebreakers. I didn't want to go up and talk to anybody at booths, even for help getting a job, because I was too... Well, number one, I was really, really amazed that I was in a room with real game developers, and I was not one. So I was kind of like in awe, and I felt out of place. And also, I was afraid. I was afraid of failure. So getting in front of a camera, getting in front of a microphone was extremely important for helping get over some of the socialization issues and communication issues that I had from either being introverted or just from some other factors too. No excuse, it's just explanation. Knowing is half the battle. Not knowing what you're fighting sucks. Yeah, maybe you're right, but it's like people with anxiety, and I'm going to be calling some people out here. Anxiety is not a disorder; it is an emotion. Anybody can feel anxiety. I just want to say, I know people can disagree with me on that. I'm not going to call you anything if you disagree with me on that. I just think the anxiety is more of an emotion than a disorder. You can have an issue managing your anxiety, but I think that doesn't mean that you have anxiety. That means that you have an issue managing your anxiety. Here we have a few things. All these things really are just humans wanting to put things in boxes, whatever helps you go through life. Yeah, I think so too. I know that's a controversial one, but I don't like hearing when people say I have anxiety. It's like, yeah, I have it too. When life is being shitty and something bad happens, I kind of feel anxious as well. And I manage it by finding a way past that thing, or dealing with that thing that is giving me anxiety. I have it too. Like, I think everybody has it. It's like a normal emotion. It's like saying, I have sadness. I suffer from sadness. Congratulations, you are not a psychopath. Like, if you suffer from chronic sadness, like depression, that doesn't mean that you have it means that you have a disorder preventing you from managing that aspect of your emotion properly. And I think anxiety is just another piece of that star. Whenever life gets you down, has you wearing a frown and the gravy train has left you behind. Oh God, Jesus Christ, I hate you guys.
And it was fun. And it was team building in a way.
Your enormous penis.
Back then I didn't consciously think I was doing it, but it really did help.
Yep.
So when you fast forward to Carbine,
and good,
especially,
I know I just pressed play, but good leaders, by the way, will know that this stuff exists. They will know that things like this are not wasting time. And even if they are wasting some time here and there throughout the week, like petting the dog or going to lunch, this is important. It's important. And you can't just say you're only allowed a 30-minute lunch or something. Of course, you can't have like a 2 to 3 hour lunch or something, but as long as it's being productive and helping with the development in some way, and a lot of times with game development, talking and solving problems together as a team it takes up so much time. You don't have to do that in front of a screen, typing in code or writing a document. A lot of times, talking outside with a drink in your hand or going out to get some pizza, that is the best way to do it. People who say they have anxiety usually mean they have anxiety disorder, which is in fact an issue with struggling to manage anxiety. It's exactly a parallel between sadness and depression, or depression is sadness. Yeah, and I don't like when, I think if you're seeking help with that, like therapy, or you're trying some of your own methods to deal with that, that's cool. What I don't like is people saying, I can't do that because I have anxiety. It's like, you've just made yourself into a victim, and you're not even going to try doing something because of your inability to manage one of your emotions. Nobody can manage their emotions perfectly. I can sometimes be easy to anger. I can rant a lot. I complain a lot about things. And these are parts of me that, if left uncontrolled in certain scenarios, make me bad at talking, or make me sometimes have a bad day and it makes me really grumpy. It's like everybody's got a different problem or a different set of problems that they have to them, and they have to manage that in order to work in certain environments. People use mental disorders as excuses suck. They explain why you struggle, why you might need a bit more patience with some issues, but they should never be an excuse. Exactly, yeah. And I know I won't say the person, but I know somebody who has like a learning disorder. Like, he has trouble grasping new concepts, and so he needs more explanations to them. And he says that, and he's like, he knows that, he tries to manage it, but then he says, maybe I will ask more questions than the average person. It's not because he's stupid, right? It's just because certain things come a bit slower to him, right? My fiance, I'm going to be calling her out here, but pattern recognition is not her best aspect. She's much better with like languages and I guess that is pattern recognition, but like languages come easy to her. But things like math, don't even try. So like for me, languages, I can't understand it. I just don't get it. Math, all right. When was the last time? Shut the fuck up, Katsugoto. Beats fiance is a stressful. You were confirmed.
I've mentioned in that video that there was, and that's,
I don't want to be XQC,
Katsugoto, referring to, that there was the fun place. We weren't supposed to talk to each other. Well, I'd have chocolate eating meetings because I'd like to eat chocolate, but I didn't want to eat the whole bar. So I would post, and this was almost daily. I'd say,
that's funny.
I'd tell people, if you want to come, let me know, and I'd send you an email. And it was around 3:00. Hey, I'm eating this chocolate bar. I mean, there were people who took multiple cigarette breaks.
That's so fucking silly, but I love it. Yeah, it's like, I bought this chocolate bar, but I really shouldn't eat it all myself. So somebody want to eat some of this? XQC, I can see your knees.
Every day. So it was okay for people to take a 10-minute break and come try a piece of chocolate. And we'd talk about stuff. Mm-hmm. And it was people from all the departments: art, programming, design, audio. People would come by, try some chocolate. Maybe not the same people every time. I had some regulars, and then I had people who stopped by occasionally. We also after hours we'd still play D&D, and I did that with a lot of artists. I know I wasn't supposed to be talking to artists, but I did because I didn't care for that director or his mandates. So we played D&D after hours. We'd get together and watch MST 3000 or Riff Tracks.
Hey, Mystery Science Theater reference. Who is old enough to remember Mystery Science Theater 3000? That's good stuff.
Newer. I did that mostly with artists, in fact. That was interesting because they got to see me not as the other director described me. And it was a bit eye-opening for some of them.
That's important too. Yeah, that's also important, is that when you're in work mode, and especially if you're a director or a lead, a lot of people who don't interact with you often, especially like juniors maybe, they can almost get this false sense or false feeling about you. I know that when I worked in a previous company, a lot of the juniors that joined said that they were afraid to talk to me because I was an English speaker and I was the lead game designer. And I'm glad that I was able to connect with them eventually, and I'm glad that they shared this with me. I think that it taught me a lot that if I'm in a position like that with a lot of authority and responsibility, I need to do my best to have a more personal connection with new people on the team. I need to go out of my way to onboard these individuals and say, hey, any problems you have, come to me. I have problems with my own design. I'm sure you do as well. And if you have any cool ideas, I'd love to hear them out, and maybe we can incorporate some of them. And I didn't go out of my way enough to do that in my previous company.
And at the same time, it was very morale building. I can't tell you how many times at a chocolate eating meeting, maybe an artist and a programmer would be there, and the programmer would say, hey, did you see that new feature I put in? You can do this now. And he goes, no, I didn't see it. And he goes, come by my office. I'll show you how it works. That was worth
That's amazing.
The price of a chocolate bar.
Yes, that is.
At Obsidian, when I went there, when I first arrived and I was working on South Park, I used to bring in baked goods a lot. And a lot of them were ones Robert was making. He'd make these baked goods, and I'm like, there are 36 muffins here. And he's like, take them to work. So I'd take baked goods.
That's awesome.
And when I started at Obsidian, the interesting thing about it is I already knew about a third of the people there. But a lot of the other 2/3 learned, hey, Tim gets in early, like at 8. And many times I'd send a message out going, there are blueberry muffins, there are chocolate cookies, there's cinnamon bread in the South Park lounge, which is a little meeting area, a little corner area.
Well, it's also like it's a fun incentive to just be on time. And I'm not saying that being on time is the end all be all of working in a company, right? But that the consistency is actually really good for humans, right? We are creatures of habit, and having that habit and being rewarded for it, even though you could maybe say it's kind of like animalistic to feed individuals. It's like kind of Pavlovian, right? But either way, I think that it's nice. It's fun, and if you know that certain people are going to be there at certain times, it kind of helps with strategizing early meetings or a stand-up or just a casual conversation about how the day is going when you get into the work in the morning. So this is all great. This is all fantastic. It gives me some good ideas and thoughts to do with Microraptor, even though we are mostly a remote studio.
I set it out for people to try, and it was fun. I met a lot of new people. I chat with people I used to work with at Interplay. It was a great morale builder without me consciously trying to do it. And then later, when I was running the Outer Worlds, I did consciously start up chocolate eating meetings. And again, I watched it happen where people on my team who normally didn't talk to each other, narrative designers and animators, they would come to the chocolate eating meeting and they'd talk about the chocolate, or they made something. Oh, I saw something really cool in the game today. And it turns out the person who made it, maybe she was sitting right there, and it's like, you like that dialogue? You like that animation? It was fun to watch that happen and watch people interact in an unforced, very casual way.
One thing he mentions there, and it's kind of subtle, but saying that people do a good job. I kind of goes along with recognition, right? But some people are very. That's very crucial to them, to know that they're doing a good job, especially juniors. Juniors are really, really afraid that one small fuck up is going to get them fired, that they're not as useful. There's a lot of those internal issues, and everybody's different, right? There's some juniors that can handle it better. I know some juniors that handle that worse and have a difficult time voicing that. So just having that place where people can openly share like that was really cool. You did a really great job on that. Can often impact somebody's day, week, or even longer in very unknown ways. So for instance, every time when somebody brought me a good idea and we tried to incorporate it or something, I would always try to say, dude, that's a really, really great idea. That's amazing. I love it. Let's find a way to do it. Just say it. Just reward them with that. And I don't do it because I have to improve morale. I do it because I genuinely think that. But that we're making sure that I do say it every time, I think is important for the relationship that you have with your employees or with your colleagues in this case.
So, those are all the things I could realize of things I did intentionally or not that were morale boosters. Now, some of you are going, wait, wouldn't these are things you would have done anyway? Would I? Some of these things I would not have done. I mentioned that I needed, as an introvert, I kind of needed my downtime. So I liked going home for lunch and just having an hour of quiet time. So the fact that I was taking people to lunch at Troika was a deliberate morale thing. In fact, I didn't do it very much before or after Troika. And also, like the chocolate eating meetings, I could have eaten a little bit of chocolate and saved the rest, or eaten a little bit of chocolate and tossed the rest. But I liked talking about chocolate with other people, but I also liked that they would then talk with each other. It was a very superficially obvious way of getting different people on the team to just chat with each other socially with no other context other than we're gonna talk about chocolate. If we happen to talk about the game, great. If someone has a question, great. So
Yeah, and I think the interdepartmental part of that too is also something to keep in mind, where getting the number one people that programmers socialize with on a team is other programmers. The number one people that designers might be a little bit different, but artists, other artists, level designers, other level designers. So having a way to just casually get people from different departments to mingle and either talk about nothing work related or all work related is kind of just an open way to get people involved. Creatives are a totally different breed to manage. Ops guys just need to be fucked with. Need not to be fucked with. Better watch out or they'll put a mini dragon inside the oven. These are all just great. These are all fantastic. And he mentions that he had to do some of these deliberately. I tend to do them kind of subconsciously, where I just enjoy spending time with my friends. And if that ends up resulting in somebody's work becoming better, that's a bonus. Maybe I did it, like I said, subconsciously. Like I knew that it was being beneficial, but I wasn't doing it because of that.
of all these things, I think the most successful was probably the dog. The dog was very good at getting people to feel quickly like they were part of the team, or from the dog's point of view, part of the pack. And I told you the story in the
It's a non-personal conversation starter, right? It's much easier to socialize with an animal that isn't requiring you to say the right things at the right time. You can go up to like a dog and just say the most retarded thing in the world. And a lot of people do that. So it's much easier to socialize and empathize with something that isn't going to think poorly of you if you tell it a horrible idea for a game design.
the videos about the new programmer who wondered why my dog would come in and look at him every day, and it's because he was expecting a treat because the old programmer who sat at that desk had treats.
Oh, that's funny.
I know that sometimes when the dog got a lot more comfortable, he would sometimes go and sit in other people's offices, and that was neat for the people because it's like, oh, the dog chose me. But also, I was happy that the dog was feeling comfortable and
true.
safe, because this was a dog I had rescued who was very anxious. But that dog was kind of a social morale booster just by being a dog. Just by, here's a dog, doesn't say anything, very calm, very just happy to be there. And it just made everybody sort of interact. Sometimes, someone will be petting the dog, someone else come over and pet the dog, and now they're talking while they're petting the dog. Dog loves it, they love it. I would say of all the different morale boosters, probably that dog was number one, and the chocolate eating meetings were very close number two.
Those are both good ideas.
Anyway, Rhinosaur77, I hope this answered your question. I hope everybody else liked the video.
Yeah, I think that was a really good video. I 100% agree with all that. I'm glad we didn't watch that before because it was nice to view that for the first time. I know one of the things that I did was I bought a couple of like little mini Nerf pistols and brought those into work. And that was just fun. You know, if we were standing up about to go to lunch or just somebody got into the office for the first time, or even if we were just, I don't know, I was bored, I would just pick it up and I would shoot somebody over at the other end of the office. It's just fun little things like that. If I had a dog in my cubicle, I'd get 0 work gets done. With my ideas of train battles was a good idea. Tangent, but I decided to put a stream for company while I worked, and I think it's the best decision I've made today. Happy I stumbled here. I'm really happy you stumbled here too, Iris. Thank you so much. I think I get a lot of game developers to watch these streams. I think it's nice to be able to have somebody talking about something that you're interested in, or even working alongside you, right? So when we do our development streams, we're working on our game, and you can either just be happy that somebody's failing along with you, or that you're not failing and they are. Or, you know, it's just, I guess it's a little bit of social aspect, right? The dog in the office is a fun idea until it puts down a fat shit. It can happen. At this point, you're a morale buster, so while you do 0 work, all your colleagues are doing 150% of theirs. If you have enough peers, you can be even more productive. Plus, Mr. Raptor did it as America person and like guns. Of course. Wasn't there something about non-competes getting schwacked recently in US law? Yes. Yes, non-competes will be... It's either this month or next month. They are invalid. I mean, Microraptor Games wasn't going to have any non-competes in the first place, so it doesn't really impact us. We tried having Nerfs in our office. They got taken away when one guy almost got his eye taken out. How fast was that firing? The janitor reload the Nerf gun for you. Nerf guns are great. Hate non-competes? Yeah, non-competes are stupid. I don't know. We also won't have any strict NDAs. So, for instance, Igalanga, thank you for the follow. Welcome to the stream. You've won a free iPod Nano. I wish. What was I saying? I forgot. Oh, we're not gonna have like strict NDAs. So, for instance, if people want to talk about the game and share the game in our company, if they want to stream themselves working on the game, generally I'm very okay with that. The only times we might not be would be like secret things we want to keep like secret, like a hidden level or part of the like main quest finale. You know, I don't want to spoil that too early, but anything else is okay. Why the hell American people thinks that NDA is forbidding them to talk about crime that was committed in a workplace? Yeah, I mean, I hear about that too. Like, for instance, I know that my parents tell me not to talk so much about previous work on stream, probably because it looks bad, but I also don't think I should have anything stopping me from talking about my experiences at work. Like, if a company treats me right, I'm not going to say anything bad about them. If a company treats me like shit, what, I'm supposed to respect them and not talk about how poorly they treated me? I just don't get the logic behind that. It's like, oh, well, maybe people wouldn't want to hire you in the future. What, people that will treat me like shit wouldn't want to hire me in the future? Great. That saves me a lot of time. Yeah, if you guys want to watch this yourself or give us some support, definitely subscribe to Tim Cain, and I will end the YouTube video there. If you're watching on YouTube, thank you so much. Love you guys so much on YouTube.